got the recipe, never gonna let any op get the best of me. Thought it was distance, but haters is next to me. Talk to the spirit, you know I've been heavenly. Company definitely show your trajectory. This ain't a diss cause I say it respectfully. It's time to eat up, red like a speeder. Taking it deeper and that's how it better be. I never let the comparison get to me. I just remember the promises meant for me. I know the enemy and that he sent for me. I keep the blood of the lemons, my centerpiece. I cannot trust in no crystals or energy. Look at the chemistry, it do not even mix chemically. Most of the tricks they be gimmicks, they mimic the truth. It's poison and we got the remedy. There is a bomb, apply it. The fire can stand to the tallest of giants. The tyrant and all the suppliers are scheming and lying. They selling his dreams and we buying it. Show me the chicken, I'm frying it. Show me the dough and I'm prying it. Ain't never lacking it, so what I'm packing, he taking it, he magnifying it.
They say you ain't bout it. Tell them that you finna make it, but they doubt it. But you rose like the flower. Tell me what it's like to live with superpowers.
I don't know, but I'ma get it. I'ma get it. I'ma get it. I'ma get it. I just know that I'ma get it. 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 Ayy. I got the drive, the bus, the truck, the gas is stuck. I ain't the one to rely on the luck. I put in work and then he show up. I know it's fake to sit in the reps, ain't no regrets, I do too much. It ain't me if you saying I stunt. He calling the place and I do what he want. This ain't a front, glory to G-O-D. It's what you could do with a mustard seed. It's what you could do when you start to believe. Take fear and you cast it inside of the sea. 100% out of me, cause he gave it all on the T when he let it bleed. So what is you saying to me? You just insecure about the love that turned me to a beast. I take a step and I ain't turning back. He made me first cause I know that I'm last. I ain't got time for no thing in the past. Learn from it first and then I react. Hands off me, don't hold me. Get it jumping like a trampoline. All truth, ain't no trolling. We in good hands, no folding.
They say you ain't bout it. Tell them that you finna make it, but they doubt it. But God did it. But you rose like the flower. Tell me what it's like to live with superpowers.
I don't know, but I'ma get it. I'ma get it. I'ma get it. I'ma get it. I just know that I'ma get it. I'ma get it. I'ma get it. I'ma get it. I'ma get it.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, everyone. Welcome as you all are joining. Welcome to this Ask Temi Live. It's been a minute since I've done this, but I am glad to have you all here. We're going to have a nice live Q&A. So I'll give a few minutes for folks to join, and I think we're going to have a good time. I have some folks joining on YouTube. We have some folks on LinkedIn, some folks on Instagram. So welcome to everybody. My name is Temi Siyanbade. If you don't know who I am a Houston-based attorney. I help people establish their businesses, protect their brands, and keep their profits. And that's what we're going to be talking about today as we kind of get started with these Ask Temi Lives. For those of you who have been rolling with me for a while, you'll know that we started with these live video sessions. We used to be on Facebook Live every single week, and I really wanted to connect with you. If you're on my email list, we've been talking for the past few days, and we've been talking about reconnecting and making sure that we are staying connected as a community and that we are really just helping each other out. One of the beautiful things about the people that I serve is I serve really passionate entrepreneurs. I serve a lot of thought leaders, individuals who have taken their expertise in a number of different fields and who have packaged them and provided them to their community. And they're just really passionate about the things that they do. And because of your passion, it feeds into mine and makes me excited about helping all of you figure out ways to best establish your businesses and protect your brands and keep your profits. And I decided that with all of that, let's get back to, the fundamentals, to how we started. Let's reconnect again. And so welcome if you're joining. Feel free to leave me comments. I know I have a few people who are joining from different platforms. But yeah, today what I wanted to do is I wanted to hear your questions. And as you are asking those questions, I'm going to go ahead and share them with everyone, just to see if anybody wants to. And one of the things I also decided is, if you've been following me again for a while, I have a ton of YouTube followers, and I try to respond to the questions that people leave on YouTube. I try to make sure that I answer them as often as possible, but there are so many. So one of the things that we're also going to do here during our times together once a month is we're going to be answering some of those questions. So if you have a question that is a burning question that you want to know or answer, go ahead and ask that question. I see some folks are still joining on Instagram. We have folks joining on YouTube. We have folks joining on LinkedIn. All of you are welcome. But what I'd like us to do is let's get started on some of our Q&A questions. All right, so these are some questions that have popped up in the past couple of months on my YouTube channel that I wanted to make sure I answered. We've, of course, gotten a lot of people who have been really grateful. We've had folks who have joined who have been like, thank you for dropping gems, and this is off of YouTube. But there's also been a lot of confusion. And one of those areas has been in the areas of DBAs and LLCs. Like, there are a ton of people. So here's an example of a question that has popped up a couple of months ago. Shekinah Glory 604 said, I wrote an ebook under a pen name that later blossomed into a Facebook group with a small following. I'd like to begin offering coaching packages, probably as a sole proprietor. Would I need a DBA in my pen name, or can I create an LLC and use my pen name without a DBA? I'm so confused by all of this. All right, this is not the only person who's confused. I'll post another one of the questions that kind of came up. So this one was another person. This is another person, Brittany. And Brittany said she really appreciates the content, but she said her only question is she has an LLC, but recently rebranded and changed her name. Would her new brand name be protected under her old LLC if she filed a DBA attached to the LLC already registered and paid for? And she's like, I hope my question makes sense. So again, I know that there are a ton of questions that kind of come in. So let's talk about this. Now, one of the things that I've kind of tried to do with my practice is take in two practice areas that people tend to keep separate and bring them together. And the reason why I've done this is because when we're talking about your brand protection rights and we're talking about your business rights, the two of those are actually two different buckets. Right? They're two completely different buckets. And people think, okay, if I do something with my LLC, I've protected something with my brand. And that's just not the case. I want you to take a step back and even think about this in terms of if you are familiar with the business, I guess, of brand building. Most branding experts and most business building experts would tell you that building a brand is very different from building a business. You can actually build a business without building a brand, although it's usually helpful to have a strong brand. And you can build a strong brand without having a strong business. They're two different buckets, and they have overlap, but they're not the same. And this is also true when it comes to the legalities of this, okay? So your brand protection is different from your business protection. Your LLCs are dealing with the protection of your business. So for folks who are talking about, I have this name, I have that name, LLC, blah, 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 it's great that you have to choose a name for your LLC. All states are going to require you to choose a name. They're usually going to check to see if there is any type of duplicate in their system already. So they're looking probably for exact matches. That means if you say you have CNS Holdings and you're trying to create an LLC, the state Secretary of State, they're looking to see, is there an existing CS Holdings, right? They're looking for the exact one. Now, if there is an exact one, they'll turn you away. They'll say, okay, it doesn't exist. But if there isn't one, you're allowed to. They don't care about it being similar because they don't care about the brand. It's just about the business. Okay, brand protection is different. When we're talking about the laws that are associated with protecting your brand, right, they are looking to see if you have these two different things connected, right? And so they're looking for similarities. They're not looking for exacts. So that's one element when we're talking about LLCs and trademarks. But I want to get back to that question again. Let's look at Shekinah's question. All right, Shekinah, again, she was saying she wrote an ebook under a pen name, right? She wants to know, would her DBA in her pen name, can she need that? Or let me specifically read what she read. She said, would I need a DBA in my pen name, or can I create an LLC and use my pen name without a DBA? I'm so confused by all of this. So what Shekinah is showing is a confusion about what rights are being protected. DBAs do not protect your brand rights. They do not protect the names that you use to put yourself out there in commerce. LLC names do not protect your brand names. They do not protect the names that you use to put yourself out there in commerce. So if your primary focus is, I want to protect my brand name, I want to protect the name and the logo and the things that help me identify myself as a source of something, I need to look to a different body of law. I need to look at trademarks, because LLCs aren't going to help me. DBAs are not going to do anything for you, really. Only thing that a DBA does, like in my book, right? And this is to me, but this is also legally, right? A DBA does not provide any brand protection. What it does is it says this is a nickname essentially, but doesn't protect that nickname. It doesn't say that you're exclusive to this. But it allows you, honestly, to have people write you checks in that DBA name, and allows you to deposit it in the bank account as long as that bank account says the DBA. It allows you to put your name out there, but not in a protected manner. Okay. So does she need a DBA in her pen name? If she has, so this brings up a different question. Okay. Now here's where things can get a little muddy. You can create an LLC that protects your rights, right? And then you can have that LLC have different names that it uses to do business. Are those names that it uses to do business protected in terms of those brands? No, they're not. Okay? They're not protected that way. But it does allow you, again, to just technically say, okay, I can sign a contract, or I can sign a contract that says this doing business has X, Y, and Z. Allows people to write you a check in that DBA's name. But in terms of legal protection, if you get a DBA in the name of an LLC, or if you have an LLC that has a DBA, the business protection that that LLC has extends to the DBA. Again, let me repeat that. The business protection that LLC has extends. If you're a sole proprietor, if you're a person who just started your business and you get a DBA, your lack of protection as a sole proprietor extends to your DBA. So a DBA can be attached to any type of entity. And all it does is it tells the world this person does business like this, but it does not protect your right to do it. It allows people to write checks in your name. A stronger protection, if you want brand protection, is your trademark. And so I see a question that came in from NA. I'm going to, let's see what her question is. Let's see if we can post this. All right, let's get rid of this one. So she asked, would establishing a trademark in your state help protect you until you file with the USPTO? Great question. All right, so the thing with the state trademark is that it's so limited. It only protects you when it comes to your actual state. A federal trademark is going to protect you all over the US. Now, in terms of it protecting you, let's talk about what this protection means, because I think that that's going to help us in terms of saying, does it actually protect you? What does having a protected brand look like? A protected brand looks like you have the ability to stop other people from using that name. It means that you can enforce your rights if somebody else tries to copy you. So you can say, hey, stop. You can sue them, right? So the two things, again, you have exclusivity to be the only person who uses it, and you can stop other people. That's what real protection looks like when it comes to this. Now, establishing a trademark in your state, it might be a shorter timeline, but the protection would only be in your state. Whereas if you file for a federal trademark, right, although that process is long, about a year, the fact that you filed it, if anybody decides to try and copy you with regards to your goods and services, right, you have a better standing to say you want to bring a suit because you have already filed it. And when it comes to the protection, they're going to go back and they're going to look at when you submitted your application to go back and determine how protected you are or where your protection starts. Okay, so it's always better to do a federal mark, in my opinion, than a state mark, just because of the broad protection and the cost. It's just more cost effective to do it for a federal where you know that you're protecting yourself all over. And again, the trademark is going to provide you that broader protection. All right, so I hope that I answered that question. Let me see. I want to make sure I'm not missing anybody else's questions. I see a couple of folks who have joined. Welcome as you're hopping in on Instagram or LinkedIn or YouTube. Feel free to leave your questions. We're just doing live Q&As today. All right, so let's look at another question that we've had that came up in the past. All right, here's another DBA question, another one. This is a Brittany Nicole, and she says, thank you so much. She was talking about one of the videos, and she said, so do you need to file a DBA before or after filing an LLC, or is the LLC enough? If the business is not just your name, John Jones LLC. I just filed an LLC. Do I now need to file a DBA for that LLC? If your primary focus is just being able to do business, collect checks, once you have an LLC that's in the name that you're okay with for business purposes, you don't need to go and file another DBA. A DBA is if you are trying to have another way, another name for the way you collect payments. So for example, in terms of my law firm's formal name is the Law Office of Temi Siyanbade. But if you follow me on lots of different platforms, you know me as TOS Legal. You've seen TOS Legal everywhere. Right? That could be a brand name. Essentially, if you work with my law office and you want to pay me and you write a check to TOS Legal, because I have a DBA attached to that, you can write the check to TOS Legal and I can deposit it in the account for my law office because they are attached due to the DBA. If there was no DBA and you wrote out a check to TOS Legal, that would not be something I could deposit in my account because it's not the same. It would just be a random name. All right, so I see a couple more folks who are joining in on Instagram. If you have any questions, go ahead and pop them in there. Let me know what your questions are. Good. Okay, thank you. You said that question was answered. All right, so I hope this one for Brittany was also answered. Let's look at another question. Okay, this is again along the same line. So I just brought in a few of them because I really wanted to bring in some of those. What if you do a DBA for your LLC? Again, DBA for LLC, your LLC protection is going to extend to the DBA, but the trademark or the brand name is not protected. You have no exclusivity. All right. I know these are great questions. These are a lot of the questions that have come up on the YouTube channel. So if you are one of my YouTube followers, like holler, I'm very excited that you're here. I really want to make sure that I'm answering your questions and want to stay connected. So don't hesitate to leave me questions. There are a lot of questions that I can't answer on YouTube. And I should get into that a little bit here. One of the things you should know about lawyers is we have these really strict rules. I don't know if enough lawyers talk about it, but there are really strict rules about the ways we do business. And so we can't just give out a lot of advice without being very careful that you know that we're not, there's no attorney-client relationship happening. So all of you who are following me or who are here on this awesome broadcast, welcome. If you've signed a contract with me, then you're my client. If you haven't, you're not, right? And so I need to make that very clear. You're not my client if you have not signed a contract with me. And I'm just giving broad informative responses, right? Now, of course, when it comes to different matters, the specifics of your situation will determine what type of advice is best for you. So there are questions that people ask me on YouTube that I'm like, I really can't answer because the details are too specific. You'll need to actually become a client or at least schedule a consultation with me to get into that nitty-gritty. Once you become a client of mine, then yeah, we can answer all the questions and we can look at the specific facts that are related to you. All right. So that was another good question. Here's another question that came up. I don't know if you can see this. Let me make this a little bigger for you. And this says, hello, I would like to find out how to use my LLC for startups like venture capital, having more than 5 startups under my LLC. How does that work? Right. And welcome to my folks on Instagram. Welcome to the folks on YouTube. Welcome, everybody. So Precious Childcare was asking how would that work to have more than 5 startups under her LLC? This is a really common question, and I'm glad that she asked this question because it comes up. Now, people are like, okay, I want to do this, 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 and I have one LLC. I'm usually going to advise against that. And the reason why I'm going to advise against that in most cases is that if you have different ventures, each of those ventures have their own risk associated with it. And one of the beautiful things about creating an LLC is you're isolating the risk, right? If you've watched some of my videos in the past, I talk about this thing called limited liability and this division that happens when you create an entity like an LLC where you are separating yourself from the business, right? You're separating your assets from the business, which is a good thing. But let's say you have two different businesses and you now put them in the same bucket because they're in the same LLC. Those risks are now mixed together. So the example I like to give is, let's say you have a restaurant and you have an event planning business, two different businesses, but under the same LLC. There's a lot more risk associated with your LLC, with your restaurant, than there is with your event planning business. Let's say your event planning business is doing amazing. You're racking in the dollar bills, coins, and everything included, right? So you are making millions in your event planning, but your restaurant, not so much. And then our worst nightmare happens. Someone gets sick or someone slips and falls and they sue your business, right? This happened at your restaurant, not at your event, a restaurant. But they're all in the same LLC. So all of the money that has come in from the event business is also in the same bucket as the money and stuff that came from the restaurant. If somebody wants to sue you for what happened in the restaurant, they're able to also access the assets of the event planning business. That is the problem with having multiple entities or multiple businesses under one LLC. You're not able to separate the risk associated with them. Okay? So that's how it would work. You could do it. You could say, I'm doing this business, I'm doing that business. It's all the same LLC, but you're not getting individualized protection. You're just putting all your risk in one bucket, and that can be a really terrible thing. And so that's the way that I would kind of put that out there. Now, I know sometimes people are also like, well, this is a low risk business, and I understand. In the instances where you might have a low risk venture and you're just starting out, I understand why people might do that to be cost effective. I don't think that's best practices, but I understand it, especially if you're doing that in the meantime with the goal of eventually separating that business to separate the assets. So that's what should happen, worst case scenario. Eventually, you should separate these two things. Okay? All right, so that was that question. Let's see. We have a couple other questions that have popped up. And if you have any questions, go ahead and let me know here in the chat. I'm trying to keep all of those through. All right, so here's another question. And this question says, if I have an unregistered name for the LLC and I see that someone else is already using that name, do I change the name of my LLC? So this goes back to that name protection stuff that we were talking about earlier. We're mixing up two different types of rules or two different types of protections. The question that I would have to ask AP is, I would say, what are you trying to protect? Do you care about protecting your brand name? Are you planning on using that brand name to kind of distinguish yourself in commerce? Or is it kind of like a holding company? For folks who are doing real estate, a lot of my real estate people, they don't have real estate companies that they're trying to build brands from. They're just buying and selling property, or they're just using it for protection of assets, right? In those instances, you don't really care about somebody else using your name. You're not trying to limit that. You're not trying to have exclusivity. And so do you need to change the name of your LLC? No. But if you're trying to really use that also has a brand name, you're going to have to really think about whether that's the right step, or come up with a brand name that that LLC owns that you can get a trademark for that's a little different. Okay, so that's one of the things that you're going to want to consider, is that if you have an unregistered LLC again, and someone is already using that name, changing the name of that LLC is really going to be something that is going to be based off of whether or not you want to show yourself you want to identify yourself with that brand. If you do, then you're going to really want to consider, okay, how am I protecting my LLC, and also thinking about a trademark. All right, let's look at one or two more questions that have come up. All right, so this is another one that came up from the YouTube channel. All right, and this one says, can I stop someone else from registering? Oh, I love this question. Oh, and I have another question that came in on YouTube, so I'm going to grab that question as well. But this one says, can I stop someone else from registering the same trademark name under any class if currently no one else is using it apart from me? Right? So, and then let's continue reading. It says, if they start registering my trademark name under other classes, and the trademark will be diluted and it loses its value eventually, when everyone registers the same word and trademark can become generic, please let me know your comments. Great question. So here's something, I haven't spent too much time talking about this on the YouTube channel. I've spoken about this with a lot of my clients, and this is when we're talking about trademarks, right? you have to register your trademarks in classes. These are categories of goods and services, right, that are associated with that trademark. The perfect example that I love to give is that we have the trademark name Delta. When you hear Delta, a lot of us think of Delta Airlines. That is one way and one class that that name is associated with. But there is also Delta Faucets. These are two identical names, but with very distinct trade classes or different classes of goods and services. Because those classes are so distinct, the USPTO is okay with letting them coexist. Now, if you register your trademark in one category and somebody comes in and tries to register it in a similarly situated category, so maybe you do something with cosmetics, but you're talking about hair, and then somebody else comes in and they do cosmetics, but they're talking about makeup, right? There's going to be a little bit more pushback from the USPTO because they're so closely related. So they're going to try to make sure that that issue with other classes doesn't happen. What I usually tell my clients, and this is actually what we do with regards to our services, is we start off with a search where we look at multiple classes, the one that you are currently planning on doing business in, as well as classes that you are likely to do business in the future. And we let you know what's out there. We do that so that we can also determine, is it worth doing the investment for the trademark now? Once we've looked at that, right, we're able to come back to you and say, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. This is the best route. But you also can develop your ongoing plan of the next classes of goods you would like to protect. So it is very common for my clients to come back and end up registering 3 or 4 different classes. And what ends up happening is they are now extending their protection, because anything that's related to the specific class that they have, or the classes they have, the 3 or 4 that they have, plus the classes that are related, the United States Patent and Trademark Office is going to be attuned to it and say no. The other thing is that as a trademark owner, you really have a duty to police your brand. What does that mean? That means you need to be on the lookout. You need to see who is trying to sneak up in here with the same or similar name as yours. Anybody who's trying to, you need to send a cease and desist letter. There is case law where people have not done that protection, where they have not policed their brands, and they've lost the protection from the United States Patent and Trademark Office because they're like, well, you let it happen. So it's so important that there is some type of ongoing monitoring that is happening when you are doing this type of, when you're protecting your brand. All right. So great. This is one of my favorite questions. And if there are any more questions about this, we can come back to it. But this person brings up a lot of good points in terms of the trademark being diluted. You don't want that to happen. All right. So let's get rid of that one. And let's bring in some of these questions. All right. I see some folks who are joining. Here's another question from NA. And she says, if you're going to publish, oh, great question. If you are going to publish your own book, would that trademark be 2 separate classes? All right. So now you're bringing up another thing. So today we've only been talking about trademark and LLCs, but the right protection for a book is actually a copyright. And that's why I want people to come talk to me. Everybody, listen. At the end of this, you need to share this. If you're on Instagram, if you're on YouTube, if you're on LinkedIn, you need to share this with other people so that everybody hears about this, because these are mistakes. And I'll see if I can splice it up, because these are great questions that are coming in. So copyright is a completely different area, but it's also related to the protection of the things that you create. Anytime you are creating some type of original work, so a book, a movie, a song, a picture, all of that is protected by copyright. And it's the copyright that allows you to stop other people from copying you. A trademark, what a trademark protects, trademarks are for branding. Trademarks are for branding. Trademarks are for branding. I want you to really associate trademarks with branding. Trademarks are for anything that you use to stand out as you are building your brand. So your name, your logo. Now, if you have a book that also has a brand associated with it, you can get that trademark. So one of the things that comes to my mind is when I was younger, I used to love the Babysitters Club. Loved the Babysitters Club. That was a brand, right? They had they were the source of a particular type of story, right? And so if they decided to trademark Babysitters Club as a title, right? Or as a brand name, They probably could do that. They could also probably trademark the logo. If you're familiar with Babysitter's Club, it was all these like building blocks cubes, right? To create it. That would be what they would use in terms of associating, right, their brand with the world. So that would be what you would want to protect. Okay. Now, in terms of, so that's what that answer to that question would be. It wouldn't necessarily be 2 trademark classes. It would be more so, it would be more of a copyright. Now, the only time that this would be associated with probably a trademark is, let's say you are in the business of creating books. You are a Barnes & Noble is a distributor of books. Barnes & Noble can have a trademark associated with books to some extent. Or there's a tourist book guide. If you like travel, you might be familiar with Rick Stevens. He creates all of these travel books. So he has a brand associated with that. He can get a trademark associated with, I create books in the category, I provide books with regards to tourism, right? If you are creating like notebooks, like let's say you're in the planner industry, right? You can have a trademark associated with, I provide goods in terms of planner books, or I provide calendar books, or I provide notebooks. So like 5 Star has a trademark associated with providing notebooks. So I hope that answers that question. Thank you for asking it. All right, let's look at another question. All right, Maurice was asking, he said, so should each business venture have its own LLC? So this is going back to that question that I think AP asked. And I would say yes. Best practices, yes, each business venture should have its own LLC. I especially say this for real estate. There are too many real estate people who have one LLC for like 5 million, 5 different types of properties. And that's just not a good look, because if somebody trips and falls in one of those, all of those assets are on the line. I will put this out there. There is something called a series LLC that's available in some states, and you might be toying with that. The series LLCs are untested. So I would say that if you know that you're doing business in a state that has some statutory guidance, I should explain what a series LLC is. A series LLC, which is available in very few states, allows you to create one LLC, one parent LLC with lots of children LLCs. So it makes it easier to have different LLCs underneath one. Right? It saves you money, saves you time. You just have to make sure your operating agreement is a particular way and that you file certain documents with the state. But the protection that's associated with the series LLC in the state where it's allowed is not necessarily true for another state. So you would want to be careful about doing business outside of the state that you've created it in, because those protections that keep it separate are not necessarily recognized from state to state. So Texas offers it, and it's something that is maybe an option for our real estate investors, but not for everyone. Okay, great question. Thanks. And see, I love it. This community is so great. I know you guys are connecting. Please do that. Connect in the chats. All right, let's see. My questions are getting answered with other people's questions. Great, Maurice. I'm glad to hear that. The Gray Pill Podcast, you're welcome. Everything of yours that's a brand. Yes. Let's see. I'm sure I'm just contributing. This channel is building brand. All right. So I think those are all the major questions. I want to make sure I've seen everything from anyone. Okay, here's another one. This one is from Instagram. So this question is, and I don't think you'll be able to see it, but I'll tell you, it says, how much would you charge to trademark a name for a nail business, like Nail Poly, for example? So with regards to my business, it's a 4-figure investment. And it really depends on how many classes that you're trying to trademark and what particular things you're trying to trademark. So are you trying to trademark just the name? Are you trying to trademark a logo? Are you trying to trademark, a slogan? Each of those kind of builds it. It also depends on how you're going to pay. If you pay upfront, there's one fee. If you pay in installments, there's an additional fee for that. So those are some things for you to consider. But we usually describe or talk about what those fees look like when you schedule a consultation with us. So name and logo, that's going to be like 2 different applications, essentially, from the United States and Patent and Trademark. So it's a whole process. I'm going to put in... I'll put what I would love for you to do. Starting price, we start at $3,000. I don't mind putting it out there. That is the starting price. And depending on how many you have, we increase it. But there's savings depending on how you package it, because we want to incentivize you really protecting your brand. So I hope I've answered your question. Yeah. And so we do that. We have a really unique process. So what I'm going to do, let me see if I can find that. What I'm going to say for a lash attach. Oh, that's such a fun name. Lash attach. I'm going to put this in the comments for you. I want you to schedule a consult with us, and we can talk to you about what that process looks like and get you in to talk about that a little bit more. All right, let's see what else we have. Ooh. Oh, and you're asking so many questions, and I'm actually, so for my clients, I'm actually working on developing some internal video sources to kind of help with some of these. Because the question that NA is asking, what specimens are most helpful, is when you are applying for a trademark. When you are submitting an application for a trademark, one of the things that they're eventually going to ask you for is what we call a specimen. Now, I did a video about what specimens are on YouTube, so I want to reference that so you can go back and check that, because you're like, what is a specimen? But essentially, they want to see proof of you using the name with whatever goods and services you said you're using it with. And the right specimen really depends on the good or service that you're applying for. So if you are selling clothes, we just want to see your name on the clothes. We want to see it, or if it doesn't even have to be on the clothes. Let's say you're selling clothes, right? Your website that shows that you are associating your trade name with the selling of those clothes is sufficient to be a good trademark. To say, I'm associating this name with selling this type of good. If you're selling jewelry, right? If you show me a web page that shows your point of sale, so that means the page where people are able to purchase and buy things, a screenshot of that with the name that you're using associated with jewelry, that's going to be enough. If it's jewelry that has the name in it and you're trademarking the name, that's going to be enough. Now, if you are trademarking a logo or a visual image, whatever specimen you provide has to have the exact same image on whatever it is that you provide as a specimen. So when we talk about the Babysitters Club, right? If they're trying to get a trademark of the logo for Babysitters Club, they have to provide an image of the cubes specifically. If they are trademarking just the name, then they just need something that shows the name associated with it. All right, but it should be in commerce. And I say that to say it should show you selling it. So we love to use point of sale stuff for e-commerce stores. Like I love to take screenshots from my clients when I'm working with them. We'll get screenshots of their e-commerce pages and provide that has specimen and that has worked. We've also used labels and pictures of that we submit. So those are some of those things that are there. Ooh, all right. No, I'm so glad to help answer your questions. Okay. It's my pleasure. I love doing this stuff. I need to keep doing this. All right. So we got another question coming in on Instagram. Somebody said Barbie is trending. Listen, I was in my Barbie element this past week. I was wearing pink. I was like, fuchsia is my color. So I love this question. Barbie is trending heavily, but I notice a lot of business have the name Barbie writing. Could it still be trademarked? So they can't trademark. Barbie owns the trademark. Mattel owns the trademark for Barbie. They're allowing people to use it, but they're not diluting their trademark, right? Because they are not doing it in such a way where people should confuse other businesses as being the source of Barbie, right? Because everything goes down to, like, this is what the United States Patent and Trademark Office and the United States government, we should think about big picture, is concerned with. They want people to be able to know who and trust who they're getting things from. They want to know, they're trying to protect consumers. So if a consumer believes that, hey, when I spend my money here, I'm getting it from this trusted business, they want to make sure that that's actually true. That's why they don't want other people to have anything that's similar. So what everybody else is doing right now with Barbie is allowing it, but again, it's not confusing. It's not creating likelihood of confusion. Now, if somebody decided to start trying to sell dolls, right, using Barbie, then we would have a problem. Barbie would send a cease and desist letter, and all of Mattel's lawyers, even the ones in the movie, right, they're all coming to that person's house to stop them. So really, really great. I see it's black Barbie. So yeah, you have to be careful about using that because it is a trademark. All right, we've had so many questions come in. Let me see. And people kind of popping in and out. It's been great to see that. I want to make sure I'm not missing any questions that have popped up. So let's understand. I love these questions that everybody's asking, and it's better to ask the question and get the answers. So the final thing that I was going to say is sometimes people are also asking about how to work with us as a firm. So I wanted to make sure I address that because that comes up in these videos often. So if you are interested in working with our law office, right? The easiest way is to go to our website, www.toslegal.com, and schedule a consultation. So let me see. Yeah. All right. So to schedule a consultation, I just put the link in the chat box for those of you who are on YouTube, right? Let me check. Let me make sure I haven't abandoned my LinkedIn folks. I need to make sure my LinkedIn people are here too. And I want to make sure I didn't miss any questions that were coming through from that. Let's see. Hey, hi. I see a couple of folks who are joining us there, but I don't see any new questions there. All right. So we've got all of our folks here, but if you are interested again in joining us or working with us, feel free to visit us. You schedule a consultation by going to www.toslegal.com/contact. And we would love to sit down with you just to answer your questions. We also have a ton of people who have questions who just want time and space to ask them. That's the place. We can't always hop on live like this, but you can schedule a consultation and meet with us. Beyond that, the other thing I was going to say is that if you haven't already downloaded our checklist, you definitely want to do that because you also want to join our community. So there are a couple of people who already knew this live was coming up. We love to do things with our community, let them know about special offers that are happening, special events. So just want to make sure you are invited to that. All right. So I did that twice. So if you want to learn about our checklist, you can go ahead and join that. Ooh, will there be a live on patents? There might be. I will have to seek out some of my friends. So I'm all about intellectual property, but patent is not my strength. So I'm going to have to tap in some of my friends and bring them on, which I think might be a fun conversation. So if you join the email list, right, if you go and you download the checklist and you're on the email list, we'll let you know. And then here's the thing. If you really enjoyed this, but you want more topics, DM me. Go ahead and hit me up with a comment in the chat box below this video or chat box and say, this is the questions that I would love to ask. You could even go to the website, www.toslegal.com/video or /asktemi. Those two links will take you to where you can have these questions answered. So I would love to answer it. This is fun to me. Strangely enough, some people would not call this fun, but I think that this has been awesome. And I've been so glad to have all of you here. If there are no more questions, I think those are the big things. I'm going to let you guys go. Thank you, 24-Hour Boss, for joining in NA. And I know the Gray Pill, and we had a couple other folks joining in and out from Instagram. So thank you all for joining. Maurice, Micah, I appreciate all of you, and we are going to do this again soon. Till then, take it easy and continue to work on establishing your business, protecting your name, and keeping your profits. All right? Have a great night. Bye.
I used to stick around, definitely not for too long. But boy, you got me hooked and made me wanna write this song. Thought all guys are the same, apparently I was wrong. Let me take you somewhere where we could be alone. You know how people say it caught me unexpected. Well, I really wasn't prepared.